Hey, what's up guys? I just took a short little break from making videos because my last video was not really watched that much, so I figured, let's pre-produce some videos but not upload that regularly. But I'm back with a really interesting video. So this is the Hardware Australia Covert-01. Basically an interpretation of a Gerber Applegate folder. Now, I don't know what the legal limits on reproducing this design are. I guess it's pretty much all right. The patent probably has expired already. But yeah, this is basically a copy of that design. Slight differences, but very, very similar. Now, the Gerber Applegate folder is an iconic tactical folding knife, and I love tactical folding knives, especially the older ones, right? Well, basically, all the good designs have already been made. What we have here is pretty cool, I think. Historically significant even for the knife industry. Now, the Gerber Applegate folder is a folder that I liked visually speaking and I liked haptically, but I never liked the performance of it because it had a very weak liner lock that would fail almost immediately when pressure was applied on the spine, which obviously for a tactical knife, a martial blade, this is horrible. So in the second iteration of the Gerber, they put the safety on the top, which this knife also features that safety so the lock does not accidentally disengage. Which is a nice thing, I guess. I would rather have than a secondary safety. I would rather have a lock that is so strong that it doesn't fail. But good news, if the safety is disengaged, as you can see, it's not engaged right now, and I spine whack this knife, it does not fail. And I've tried it 3 or 4 times now. I will not do it anymore because obviously that puts somewhere on the lock. But yeah, this knife is pretty safe. I have not managed to fail it yet. But the thing is, usually when you deploy it and you put your thumb in here, you accidentally engage the safety anyway, which I guess is also good. Like, you could obviously not engage it if you just use it real quick. The additional safety is also another thing that makes this knife a little bit stronger than it already is. But I think it's rather fail-safe. As far as I can tell right now. Now this knife is a little bit smaller than the Gerber knife, and I think the blade is also a little bit slimmer. The cool thing, we'll show you the package real quick because some very nice details. By the way, Hardware Australia, on the side you can see Australian owned, designed, developed, which made me think that, and the price point of roughly a little bit over 200 bucks, which Australia is very expensive if you didn't know. And I thought, like, for a little bit over 200 bucks I can get a knife like this from Australia with all the shipping and all the export fees, and I doubt it. So, and also the patch on the note on the side made me think, well, is this actually Australian manufactured? And it turns out it's not completely Australian made, so they have the most of the work done in Taiwan, and then they ship it to Australia where they do the finishing, I guess the sharpening, assembling. So some work is done in Australia, but it's not a really 100% made in Australian knife, which I get it, because Australia, like I said, is super expensive, and it would be a really highly priced knife. So obviously I would like to see it being made there, but I also do understand all Western countries, they are so expensive for productions, they make it almost impossible. So you get a sticker, you get some replacement screws. These are the flat tops. Come on, focus. These are the flat tops, not the round ones. So not these. These are for the clip. The clip is tip down only, which is a turn-off for some people, so left and right ambidextrous. Personally, I am used to it because I carry a military one most of the time. So, you know, that's a tip down knife. So for me, it's muscle memory, but I can see for other people it might be, yeah, not the greatest feature. I think it works well though. I think the clip is decent. It's a little bit tight. So yeah, and you also have that texturing. So this is definitely a pocket shredder of some sorts. You can take the clip off and sand it underneath the clip. It will not visually disrupt the pattern, but you will have a smoother in and out. But other than that, I think the clip works fine. For me, you just have to know that it's tipped down. You get a sticker, you get a certificate, general card, and then you also get all the information about these specs on a nice little card. So pretty good for reviewers, I guess. You can see it's CPMS 35 yen, 59 to 60 HRC. Blade shape is a spear point, so yeah, I'm not sure if the Rockwell hardness matters that much. Partially serrated, obviously. It's PVD coated and bead blast. So PVD coated are the black ones, and then you can only get these in coatings. So either bead blast or in coatings. And yeah, blade length is roughly shy of 4 inches, so 9.8 centimeters. Pretty good. Frame and liner 420 steel, okay. And yeah, you can see the weight is pretty lightweight also, 4.44 ounces, 126 grams. That's not super lightweight by today's standards, because we have a lot of extremely lightweight knives these days. But I would say it's a good weight. You don't really feel it in your pocket that much, and it's rather slim, so that's also a good thing. But it's not slim enough where it is an ergonomic issue. I think this feels very good ergonomically, and the texturing, which is really nice. It reminds me of like a gun grip with the fish scales. It's a really nice texturing. It's not really fish scales, but it's like a, I'm not even sure what to call this pattern, but it feels really good. This is G10. You have liners, full liners, no milling on the liners. They could reduce some weight, obviously, but yeah. So overall, I do like the quality. The knife came centered. It took a little bit of breaking in, but yeah, I took it apart and oiled it, and I also wanted to see how this knife looks inside. Very big washers, some nice and long-lasting washers. Very simple construction. The screws came out really effortless, and the knife came back together really effortless. That's usually a good sign for build quality. If a knife goes back together very, very smoothly, that means, of course, that it was produced very well. And if you don't have to fidget with the blade centering, that's also a really good sign. Now, I do notice some things. You can see that the backspacer has been touched by the blade. And that is because, well, the knife does have external stop pins, which prevent it to go further into this direction. But there is no pin on the inside which prevents it to go further into this direction. So even if you would take away something off the backspacer or from the cutting edge by sharpening it, the blade will always hit the backspacer because there is no pin. Now on backlock knives, you often do not also have a pin because the tang hits the lock bar. But on liner lock knives, you need a pin of some sorts to stop the blade from going into the backspacer. Now luckily they made a G10 backspacer, so it's not that bad. The edge will not dull significantly because it's much harder than the G10. But like if you slam it down really hard, you might see more edge wear than if you close it softly. If you close it softly, I don't think it's an issue at all, but it's just something you have to know. Just a really quick note about that backspacer thing. As you can see, the thumb studs, they actually touch the liner lock, so eventually if you sharpen your blade enough, the blade wants to go further down into the backspacer, but it will not be able to do so because it locks up right here at the liner lock. Only at one side, kind of sad. Would be really cool if the design was like made specifically so the thumb studs would lock up at the front of the knife, so that way you would save yourself that additional pin on the inside. Would be a simplification construction wise. But yeah, just a quick note, if you sharpen this often enough, eventually you will not cut into the backspacer anymore. So yeah. Other than that, the quality is on point. Like the blade is centered, the detent is really good. It runs really smooth, like a really nice smooth washer action. It's obviously not like a bearing action, but that's really good. I like washers more than I like bearings. This is a knife that appeals to me because of its tactical appearance, because of its historical significance for the knife industry, and because it's a simple washer liner lock action. I like that, but not everybody will like that. Of course, you get a partially serrated edge. The serrations are super pointy and very, very aggressive. These might be the sharpest serrations that I've ever felt. These are very, very nice. I like them better than the cold steel or Spyderco serrations even. They work really, really aggressively. They're really oversized too, so sharpening them will be much easier than some of the micro serrations. Like if you take a cold steel, like good luck sharpening these, right? Like that's almost an edge that you will never sharpen. Serrations don't have to be sharpened often, but if you do, like it's a little bit of a pain in the ass. So I do like these serrations. I think they're really nice. This is obviously, the question here is obviously, do the serrations make sense, right? Because this is primarily a stabbing knife. Slashing is of course possible, but it's not as effective in the slash. So you have to keep this cutting edge very, very sharp always to make this a more effective tactical knife. But you will not really be able to use the serrations like in a tactical sense because you hit in the front section, not in the back section. So these will only be, you know, these will not be used as dramatically. So a full plain edge knife would be nicer. Visually, I like the serrations quite a bit. Practically for EDC tasks, I would also prefer a full plain edge version. But yeah, these are super cool serrations. So my honest opinion about serrations is either you go full serrations, like the full cutting edge, or you go full plain edge. I don't like the half serrations, personally. But visually, it looks very good. With the spear point blade, how thick is the blade even? I forgot to remember that on the, it's like a 3mm blade. Yeah, 3mm, so a good compromise between strength and still being able to be thin enough. So thin means it glides into things a little bit easier. Obviously you get a very strong tip because of the center line. Yes, you can sharpen that spear point to make it double edge because the cutting edge would technically be fully enclosed in the handle. Obviously if you get really in there, you could still might be able to touch the cutting edge up here, but I don't think you will be able to cut your if you put it in your pocket, you will not be able to cut anything. But yeah, you could definitely make this a double-edged knife. So they have for sure thought about this, which is nice, a nice little detail. The S35VN blade, good steel for a tactical knife, very good all-rounder in terms of toughness, stainlessness, edge retention. The bead blast, so let's talk about that. Sandblasting on tactical knives is very, very bad. Bead blasting is a little bit more corrosion resistant than sandblasting. Why is corrosion resistance such a big thing? Well, obviously if you carry it inside the waistband or close to your body, you will sweat on it. And you can also see that the bead blasting does stain a little bit. I don't think I stained this from sweat though. I think I stained it from food. I'm not sure, right? Could be both actually. So you get a little bit of stain on the finish. I don't mind it, like it's not bad, it's not rust or anything, it's just a little bit of discoloration of the bead blast. So yeah, if you want to avoid that, go with the coated version. Yeah, visually it looks really, really good. I like the classical appearance of the bead blast with the black G10, so that's why I went with this versions, but they have many colors available. External thumb studs are always nice to see. You get this ramp and chimping. I don't really think you need the chimping. Like, I never felt like I needed this chimping, right? So yeah, but it's there, who cares? And yeah, like I said, it's a really well produced knife. In terms of performance, as an EDC knife, it's okay-ish. It's not the best, right? Because it has a very low flat ground blade. To make this more effective, it should have been like a hollow ground, but that obviously would have raised the cost. And it came with a really rough cutting edge, like a very rough finish, like most cutting edges do out of box. So I even ran this across compound, polishing compound, and you can still see that the rough grind line. So that tells you how rough this was out of the box, but it was a very good symmetrical cutting edge. It just needs a little bit of sharpening, right, to make it more effective. Yeah, the serrations are a little bit of downer for ADC tasks, I guess, but they look really good. Yeah, it's don't expect an EDC miracle, but it's a really cool tactical, kind of tactical 90s folding knives vibe, which is really good. I like that. There are not too many spear points on the market anymore. Let's get out some of the ones that I have. Oh. Okay, I guess we'll put it like this. So obviously there is the tie light. I do have the 6-inch and the 4-inch tie light. This is the 4-inch tie light, which I don't like as much as the 6-inch. I think the issue with the tie light is mostly, well, besides that it's, you know, quality wise it's not as good as the Australian Hardware Australia knife, but also because you have this thing right here that pokes you all the time, which is very annoying. Other than that, the tie light is a good budget option. I would definitely not go with the sandblasted S45 yen and aluminium, which would be the most comparable to this one, but I would always go in terms of the tie light with the budget option, with the Cytel and OS 8 satin finish. One, because it attracts less oxidation on the sandblasting, and two, you might want to grind this one down, and with the sandblasting, grinding this one down, this would look really ugly. I do like the aluminum scales though, these are cool, but not as practical in winter, and they're also heavier. So if you go with the tie light for a more budgety option, go with the cheapest tie light available, not with the most expensive ones. Yeah, it kind of also reminds me of the Spec Arc, which is also not in production anymore because of the symmetrical handle. I like those symmetrical handles. I like straight handles in general. This one obviously has a different blade shape. This one would be more EDC-able, but that's also out of production. The coolest knives are not in production anymore. It is kind of sad. I really dig the old school tactical knife appearance. I also have this ProTac. This is the Godson that I never use. One of the few other spear pointish blades. Yeah, this one is a really nice version with, is this ironwood? Some sort of exotic wood, but yeah. This one is also an iconic shape in this size range, and yeah, of course there is the cold steel counterpoint as well. I only have the smallest counterpoint and the XL counterpoint. I do not have the medium-sized counterpoint, which would be most comparable to this one. But I can tell you, because I already owned one, that the counterpoint in the 4-inch size is much wider in blade, and it's much thicker in handle. This is thinner, lighter, easier to carry. Yeah, and quality-wise, I like this a little bit more, and how it feels. And then I of course have the small counterpoint still, and the XL I also have, but that's not really part of this video. And I guess the most iconic blade shape knife of the similar blade shape is the Almar Eagle. What a cool knife. And this is also not made anymore. This one would be much more EDCable than the Covert. But yeah, these are all really cool knives. I always had a soft spot in my heart for this shape of knife. And yeah, the Covert is a really cool knife, historical wise, right? I think it's nice that it came back. Some people will not like that it came back because they would say it's like a copy of the Gerber knife, but I think legally wise it's okay, and I think it's more practical. It's thinner, it is stronger in the locking system, and I think the quality is much better in terms of like build quality. Like I said, the only negative thing that I've noticed so far is the missing of a pin, but yeah, it's not dramatic, quite honestly. I don't mind it too much. So yeah, really cool knife. I do not plan to sell this anytime soon. I think this one is a keeper for me personally. And yeah, it's I'm looking forward to see what the Australians come up with next. If they do more like this, I'm definitely interested. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and maybe see each other in another video. Goodbye.